All right, man.
Good Friday morning. Welcome back to Finding God in the Dark. I'm PD.
And I'm ED, Evan Dodge.
I thought it was Rev
Yes.
Ev.
RevEv. That's right. That's my nickname. I'm RevEv. Happy Friday.
PD and ED. We don't want to go with the implications of ED, do we? We don't want to talk about that.
I know.
No, that's
I
not, that's
know.
not, that is a different discussion.
Yeah, it's a different
And
podcast.
this week we're going to talk about the film Barton Fink, which was Evan's pick for me to watch that I have not seen before. I have watched it in the past week. Uh, some of the details. It's a 1991 film. It is technically categorized as a black comedy or a psychological thriller, one of those two. Written, produced, edited, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. Set in 1941, New York and Hollywood, mostly Hollywood. Stars John Turturro as a New York City playwright hired to write scripts for a film studio in Hollywood. John Goodman as an insurance salesman who lives next door at the rundown Hotel Earl.
Mhm.
Um, just some surface thoughts here. This film felt like going to film school. It felt like taking a film theory class. It was
Mhm.
deeply psychological. On the surface, it's just this sort of noir kind of black comedy, maybe murder mystery thing. But it is so loaded with symbolism and Hollywood in jokes. And the question, the big question, I think, for me at least, was how much of what happens, particularly in the Hollywood part of the film, is all in Barton Fink's head.
Right.
Um, because so much of it is kind of surreal, it has
Mhm.
that dreamlike quality to it, right? Um, how much of it, and he's a writer, right? So how much of it is him trying to write a story and the story just appearing? And we've seen that in other kinds of films, a little more straightforward in other films, um, but yeah, it was definitely an odd film.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
think the
was,
Coen brothers kind of actively work against films that are kind of linear and cause and effect, right? If this, then
yeah.
this. Um, and I remember reading something about from the Coen brothers. I think it was in the mid '90s, shortly after the film was released, about how uh, people have a problem with the movies because they're not like straight ahead, right? Like it's not okay. Here's this guy who has writing block, and here's how it gets resolved, right?
Right.
And he produces this great, or he writes this great masterpiece, which is produced and makes him a lot of money, right? Like it's nothing like that. And I
No.
think it's the ambiguity of of Fink's character and of what happens, and whether it's in his mind or not is intentional. I think the Coen brothers like their audience to pull multiple different conclusions from movies.
And it's very easy to do with this film.
Yeah.
Very easy to, here's one of the observations that I have seen about it. Okay. When Fink is first recruited to go to Hollywood, he goes to Hollywood. They put him up in this Hotel Earl. He goes to the front desk, he
Right.
rings the bell because there's nobody right behind the desk. And when Steve Buscemi, the character who is the bellboy, I guess the desk attendant and all of that, when he appears, he comes up from below, like he comes up through a trap door behind the desk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's scenes later in the film where the hallway of the hotel seems to be burning and yet not consumed. And so, one questions whether is this whole thing supposed to be a metaphor for hell? Is the Hotel Earl hell? Is all of Hollywood hell?
Mm-hmm.
Which, so Even though this is Stranger Things, I wore the right shirt today, didn't I?
Yeah, you
Uh,
did.
um, it just, one wonders if that's part of it, or is that just an in joke of what it's like to be a writer in Hollywood? I don't, again, multiple possible conclusions there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the Coens, I think, deliberately say that, yes, they're all right.
Right, right.
Uh,
What are some did you mind any kind of religious tropes or themes from the movie?
I see, it was funny because I think I was just so taken aback with trying to understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, that it was I had a hard time pulling anything out of that. I don't know if you have observations as far as that goes.
Um, well, I do think this notion of heaven and hell. Is he in hell in the hotel? What would heaven be like? I mean, he's kind of like, I feel he's almost in purgatory in the whole movie. It's kind of how he's like he's in between this thing for which he's striving and this hope and this dream like of accomplishing this, but there's also so much working against him, you know.
And there's also this sense, I think, for him of, this self-absorption almost, right? Like
Sure.
he has this desire, he wants to write the great play for the human, the everyman. And
Mm-hmm.
here's John Goodman dropped right in his lap, who says to him several times, I've got stories. I have stories. And he's sort of an everyman, an insurance salesman, and yet Fink never stops to listen to his stories. He just
Right.
keeps pontificating about wanting to write the great American common man story. And here's a common man to give him a story, and he just ignores it. Um, okay, do I want to make a connection there? I think the connection I would make is if you look at, I'm not going to point fingers at anyone in particular, but some of we'll call celebrity pastors. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are on TV and they're always on the internet and they've always got a big audience. And, well, are they people persons,
Sure.
How
Sure.
much are they, um, I don't know, internet stars or TV stars as opposed to being pastors? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and look, I've met at least one of the ones I'm thinking of, I have met in person, and in person, they're awesome and they're very personable, and they're, but most people only know that person as this sort of celebrity pastor,
Yeah.
serving a
Yeah.
big church in the Midwest. And, I'm not naming names or pointing fingers, but, you know,
You
it
know,
wonders where that, if there's a connection there too. And I guess we can make that. The Coens would say, sure, go ahead, make that connection.
so I think that's the freedom that the Coen brothers just in their style give you
Yeah.
is you can take anything you want from it. And
Yeah.
I think, if you look at the Coen brothers movies, The Big Lebowski, I'm thinking of ones that particularly stand out to me. Barton Fink, No Country for Old Men,
Hmm.
a Simple Man, Burn After Reading, which I think is that's like a quirky Fargo, you know.
Yeah.
Um, these are movies that I think you can almost view them as parables, so maybe not, we're not going to pull out, this is the doctrine of hell, right, or soteriology or something from this movie or that movie, but you can see them as a sort of parable. And I think that's a great, you know quasi, perhaps at times explicitly religious lens through which to understand their work, is
Yeah.
that there really are parables. They're stories about the human condition. You started to get at that, with gosh, it's been so long since I've seen the movie, John Goodman's character. And yeah, like, so
Charlie, is he? I don't remember now.
yeah, yeah, it'll come to me, I'm sure. But so we're, you're getting Charlie Meadows, that was his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
You're getting at, like, so there is something parabolic in that about the human condition, about listening, about desire, about hope. um I see that. I think you can read most of their movies in that way. Some perhaps it's more overt than others. I think The Big Lebowski is a parable. I think Fargo is a parable. About just like things that spot. Have you seen Fargo?
I have seen Fargo. Yeah.
Yeah, like, boy, talk about, just things that spiral out of your control.
Right. Oh yeah,
Once you,
he's a big feather.
yeah.
I've seen that.
So, and of course, The Simple Man, which I've mentioned to you, sorry, A Serious Man,
Mhm.
is a modern day retelling of the Book of Job. I mean, you can see them as parables. They're communicating to us, I think, something about the human condition, maybe in relationship to God, or maybe not in relationship to God, but you can read them that way. And I think that's kind of, the Coen brothers are Jewish. Like, that's part of their tradition.
Right.
And they bring that up in certain movies. Like, you can see that kind of Jewish tradition of conversation with God, or with meaning, or with ultimate purpose, um, in their movies. So I think you can see Barton Fink as a parable.
That's interesting because as you're explaining it that way, I'm thinking of what were the parables, because I wasn't a church kid growing up, right? So I
Mhm.
wasn't really steeped in religion as a lot of people are when they're kids. And
Right.
so for me, those parables, those morality stories when I was a kid were Aesop's fables.
Mm.
So one wonders, are the Coens creating or have created Aesop's fables for a modern audience,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that, sort of morality plays, so to speak, for a modern audience.
Which
It's an
you could understand, like this movie of it, with him being an aspiring playwright. I mean, kind of, you understand it that way. Screenwriter, writer.
yeah.
Yeah. So have you had enough of the Coen brothers, do you think, for a while?
Yeah, maybe for a while. They're a little odd for me. I don't look. I've seen Fargo. I've seen No Country for. I loved Fargo. Thought it was a
Mm,
great film.
yeah.
No Country for Old Men was a hard film to watch, as I recall. It's very intense, and Javier Bardem plays one of the more frightening characters, I think, in movie,
Oh, yes, yes,
because
yes,
he's
yes.
just so random. Like, you encounter this guy, are you going to die or not? I mean, he's kind of a terrifying character. Um, but anyway, yeah, they're interesting. I mean, I'm certainly, I have a more of an appreciation for them than I did before.
Cool.
Um,
Okay.
so if that was the route you were going, you got there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you ever see Raising Arizona?
no,
That with Nicolas Cage. Oh, that's a great movie.
no.
See, the thing I love about their movies, I think they're such, like, so you have this kind of film noir, kind of thriller, Hollywood
Hmm.
black comedy with Barton Fink. You've got The Big Lebowski, which is, I mean, how do you classify that? Raising Arizona, like this crime comedy film,
Hmm.
with Nicolas Cage. Then you have like No Country for Old Men, which is really dark.
Yeah.
You got Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I mean,
It's,
they are so talented because they can run the gamut of genre.
I was just going to say they can't be categorized, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, it's a Michael Bay film, lots of explosions.
You know what it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They're so diverse. Burn After Reading is just odd and quirky and funny. And Brad Pitt's in that.
Ugh.
John Malkovich is in that.
Oh
It's
my.
interesting.
Okay,
I think
put those two in a movie together. Woo,
I
boy.
think Frances McDormand is in it. She's married to one of the Coen brothers.
Yes, I did know that.
And so I think she's married to Joel. I think she's married to Joel Coen, not Ethan. So they just, I'm interested in, because I have wide ranging tastes in a lot of things. I like that, like, two brothers can offer such diversity.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, interesting dynamic at work there, right? Because I,
Yeah.
I think there's to me at least there's a very real sense that they play off of each other. They're what was it? I think I read 6 or 8 years apart. So they're right on the cusp of being from different generations, and so that their ideas bouncing off of each other are going to create this kind of a dynamic.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, so that's cool. So we transition. Time for you to watch something you haven't seen, and we have
Okay.
to determine what that might be. Um, so I know of one. I have one in my head that you've already said you haven't seen. I don't know if I want to just empty the chamber on that one already. But
Okay.
what you got kids, so do you watch a lot of kid movies? With your
Um,
little ones?
often not willingly.
See, that might be the difference between the two of us because I love watching the kids' movies with my kids.
Oh,
Really do.
yeah.
If they're decent, like there's some that are just terrible, but I love films like The Incredibles. You ever seen The
Yeah, those are
Incredibles?
bits and pieces of it with the kids. Yeah.
That that's just a great movie.
Yep. Yep.
Some of like the first bunch of Pixar films, right?
Oh, those are great, hands down.
All
Those are
home
great.
runs,
Yes.
up until fairly recently, they just all home runs.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I
and
agree.
Incredibles is one of those. That's a fun film. Uh,
Monsters Inc. is maybe Toy Story. The first Toy Story is my favorite. Um,
of
but
course.
Monsters Inc. I love Monsters Inc.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what are you thinking of? What do I need to watch?
Well, I don't know. We should probably plan this a little better ahead of time before, instead of trying to figure out as we're recording with a time window.
Oh, this is part of the appeal.
It might be. It might be. The
Yeah.
banter is part of the appeal, right? Um, so I had you watch an anime last time. I don't want to just stick with kid movies all the time or animated films all the time. So maybe I will go with the one I've been thinking. You said you've never seen the Godfather movies.
Uh-uh.
So people almost universally say that Godfather 2 is one of the best films ever made.
Oh yes, I've heard that. Uh-huh.
But you can't really watch 2 without having watched 1.
Okay.
So why don't you watch the first Godfather film
Okay.
this week?
Okay.
And I will. Well, I have it on DVD at home, so I'll pull it up and I'll watch it myself and review my thoughts on it.
Okay.
And and we'll plan better next time. The other thing I would like to throw out there that I think it might be fun. Several years, but well, back right in 2020, so the beginning of COVID, before COVID started. Do you remember pace groups?
Yeah, I used to lead a couple.
In the conference, we were doing something called pace groups. It was a clergy meeting doing continuing ed together. And I put together a pace group of clergy who we would go once a month to watch a movie together. And then we would get after the movie, we would go to the local Panera Bread and sit around and over coffee and just kind of debrief about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it might be fun going forward if we have situations where maybe one of us can't be there, or even just there's something in particular in that film that I have a certain colleague of ours in mind
Okay.
um, that would be a great resource to pull into the discussion
Cool.
certain films. So we're going to keep that door open. I have,
Okay.
I think there are some people from that group that would be fun to, have in the conversation.
Nice. Okay.
Um, and
Is
as
there
far
any is
as,
there anything playing right now or coming up soon that's interesting to you?
oh gosh, I just saw I just well actually I did the PD on pop culture on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the new Ghostbusters film.
Oh, okay.
It was cute. I took my daughter to see it. It was just like it was Friday night last week. I want to go see a movie.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh, I said, sweetie, you want to go see a movie? Yeah, sure, Dad. Okay, so we, off we went. Let me look and
Okay.
see what's out. I mean, that could be an
I did that
opportunity.
last week because Friday, um, my wife and kids were out of town.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a great concert Saturday night in Atlantic City. But I'm like Friday, maybe I'll go to a movie. I looked at what was playing. Nothing at all looked interesting to me. But some of that's my interest in, I guess, genres and stuff. I wasn't,
Well, sure, yeah.
but there
Um,
was nothing that jumped out to me.
well, right now in theaters, um, stop that. Godzilla, Godzilla Kong, Civil War, Monkey Man, Kung Fu Panda 4, The First Omen, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, Dune Part 2, The Long Game, Shrek 2. Okay. It's a re-release.
Okay, yeah,
Um, the typical kind of late spring. We're holding off on our big films until the summertime. Um,
yeah. That maybe that's it too, right? The summer, the big ones will come out.
yeah,
I
you
don't
get
even know
your
what's coming up.
blockbusters. You get your blockbusters in the summertime. I I have a mild interest in possibly seeing Civil War, just because the review that I saw on it, I watch a guy on YouTube who does movie reviews, and
Mm.
the review I saw on it, he said it's not real. It doesn't. While it's kind of based in the split that's going on in the country right now, it takes the perspective of a photojournalist. So they don't take a side; they just document. You know,
Oh,
and
I haven't
so
even heard of this movie. What's it called?
it's called Civil War.
Okay.
It's from A24, if you know A24, and they do a lot of those sort of indie type of horror films, The Witch.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Is it
This
is
is
it out
this is
already?
I believe so, or is
Oh.
out this weekend. Uh,
Ooh, it says it's a dystopian. Anything dystopian, I'm interested in. I love that stuff.
yeah, Fallout, that
Uh,
one, that sort of stuff.
oh yeah, I
Get a
can't wait.
game out
That's
of
is that
Fallout,
that
or
streaming on Prime, isn't it?
which is Civil War.
No, Fallout.
Oh, yeah, but they're making a game or a movie out of one of those
They're
dystopian.
making a TV series that's on Prime. I spent a total of 3 weeks of my life playing Fallout 4 because it tells you how many hours you logged in. I don't know if I say that with pride or embarrassment,
A little
but
bit of shame.
yeah, but it's my favorite game of all time is Fallout 4
I
uh,
I'm not, where I play games?
on your phone. Yeah, yeah. I don't play much. I didn't grow up with gaming consoles.
Yeah.
I bought an Xbox like in my 30s. And so even now, like I'll go months before I'll even touch it. But when I played Fallout, like I was addicted. And
Mm,
there's 4 story arcs you can complete.
okay.
I did all played as all 4 of them. Great game.
No,
Uh,
I'm never really been much into that. I played I think the one game that absorbed me like that was a computer role-playing game called Dungeon Siege.
okay, I don't know that.
Years ago. And I'd be playing it on the computer, and it's not like I know how to use a keyboard or anything, but I'd be playing and playing, 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 and I go, "Oh, I'm getting a little tired. I should go to bed. Oh, it's 6 a.m. You know,
Oh, it's 6 a.m.
that kind of thing. Uh,
Yep, yep.
Again,
So
not spoken with pride.
yeah, and I hear
Those
that.
those were not my best days.
So I'm gonna watch The Godfather. That's Francis Ford Coppola, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It is it's a great film. Um, it's Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it next
Okay.
week. It's a good film. Um, well worth well worth a view, even for folks who haven't seen it. We will say ahead of time, and what we didn't say about Barton Fink, right? Barton Fink was an R-rated movie. There's
Hmm.
violence in it. There's a little, there's certainly some colorful language, some obviously adult themes and psychology. In The Godfather, there's language, there's violence.
Yeah.
Again, friends, if you don't want to watch this stuff, be forewarned.
Right. Be warned. Yeah.
But our intention, as always, is find what's redeeming in it.
Yeah.
Find where it speaks to living a good life, being a good person, being a solid Christian, whatever it is, right?
Right. Right. Coppola directed my favorite war movie, Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now, which you do know is just
It's Conrad's Heart of Darkness.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a modern retelling of Heart of Darkness. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
When they're looking for the Colonel, what's his name? I'm terrible with I see these things. I'm
Character.
terrible at remembering them.
Yeah.
Um, you
But
know
you
what I'm talking
know the
about.
story.
Colonel Kurtz,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going through like they're on that raft, and they come into kind of where he's holed up
Yeah.
with the natives, and they're like all along the banks, and it's still and quiet. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." I think I read somewhere too that like Martin Sheen actually had a nervous breakdown on set, like had to take some
Would
time
not
away.
surprise me. Would
Yeah,
not
it's such
surprise
an
me.
intense movie, but it's so good, so good.
Amen.
So,
Amen, brother. Well, all
all
right.
right, man.
So you got The Godfather this week. I'll watch it too. And that's what we will talk about next week. Are we off the Coen Brothers after this? Are we gonna move on to something else?
Well, we'll see. Yeah, no, we are.
Maybe.
We are. I already have an idea in mind for the next challenge for you.
All right, cool. I'm
So,
looking forward to it. So, friends, when you're watching this video, this is going to be published. We don't record on Fridays. We record earlier in the week. This will be published on Friday. It will be Friday the 13th. So, don't walk under any ladders,
oh, Friday the
all that
13th.
stuff.
Okay.
So,
No, wait
if
a
you're
minute. Wait a
superstitious,
minute.
of course.
No, it's the 12th.
It's
Friday's
the
the 12th.
12th?
Yeah.
Well,
Saturday's the 13th.
I
Yeah.
can't read a calendar. That's my problem.
uh, the next Friday the 13th is not until September.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yep, September the second Friday in September.
I don't know why I thought it was. I think I got my days messed
I
up.
was just like running in my head like I as a pastor I tell my week by Sundays.
Yeah.
And I'm like wait a minute, the 14th I know is a Sunday. That would make Saturday the 13th. I
See,
can do
I'm not even
math.
thinking like that. I'm just. I should be, shouldn't I? I should be more like that.
Come on, PD.
All right, brother. Friends,
Peace.
take care. Continue looking for God in the dark. God bless.